The story begins by introducing us to the main character, the Demon King, who reveals his name is Jang-chul Kim. He was just an average graduate student, that is, until yesterday. He explains that he was suddenly transported into the body of Kratos, the Demon King from his favorite game. He brushes it off as a typical transmigration story. Bro literally went from ordinary grad student to Demon King overnight. Inside the body of Demon King Kratos, he begins to narrate the game's premise, called Paladins of Blood, where an ancient sleeping hero is awakened, but he quickly gives up, sighing and deciding there's no point in explaining it. Just then, a voice calls out to Lord Kratos. A figure is seen striding down a long hall towards the throne. This person is identified as Zephyros, a level 15 aide. He's a sharp-looking demon with glasses and a professional demeanor. Zephyros reports that the troops are ready to move out. The scene then flashes to the demon army, a massive horde of monstrous creatures roaring for battle. One of the four great generals, the blood drinker Asaroth, a beastly level 534 warrior, rallies the troops, declaring that their invasion will end the famine. Following him is the Ice Queen Circe, a level 531 armored warrior, who speaks of the tragedy of being born on barren land and the pain of having to eat their own kind. She declares they will leave the suffering in the past. Wow, eating their own kind? That's dark! The next general to speak is the Mistborn Duke Hartok, level 555. He commands the army to rip the humans apart and crush the elves. Finally, the Black Rock tyrant Bahal, a hulking red-haired brute at level 539, roars for them to turn them all into food. The entire demon army lets out a massive cheer, their weapons raised, ready for war. Back in the throne room, facing his generals and the roaring army, Demon King Kratos raises a hand to speak. He gets the attention of his eager commanders. In a commanding voice, he, Kratos, gives a command to all demons. He announces that from this moment on, they will cease all invading and begin farming. Wait, what? Bro told an army of monsters to farm instead of fight? This guy's crazy! The four generals are immediately shown with expressions of rage and disbelief, with one shouting that the command is absurd. As he looks at their furious faces, Jang-chul inside Kratos' body has a moment of pure terror. He thinks to himself that they are all incredibly scared. Then he reveals the true reason for his bizarre order. If this war actually starts, a massive, armored hero will awaken. A system alert appears, announcing that the 20th playthrough has begun. This hero is a playable character named Kimchi for Life, who is an absurdly high level of 9,990. Jang-chul knows with absolute certainty that if he fights this guy, he will definitely be killed. Yeah, no way you're surviving that. The story then flashes back to explain Jang-chul Kim's life before all this. He had a dream of becoming a rich farmer, which led him to attend graduate school for agriculture at Hanguk University. Being super smart, he quickly became the top student in his program. However, he soon learned that being the top student meant he became everyone's personal servant. His professors exploited him, making him write their dissertations, lead their projects, and even do manual labor like plowing fields, all while taking the credit. Completely burned out and collapsing in his room, he wondered what kind of life this was, doing all the work while the professors reaped the rewards. In a fit of rage, he thrashed around, screaming about how he wanted to kill them all. His dopamine levels were depleted, and he was losing his mind. The only thing that gave him any relief, his only source of dopamine, was a video game. The game was Paladins of Blood, known for being insanely difficult with super slow level-up speeds. No player had ever cleared 19 playthroughs. Driven by a desperate need for a sense of achievement, Jang-chul sacrificed his sleep for the game. He played through it again and again, from his first to his 10th and beyond. Eventually, he became the first person in the world to clear 19 playthroughs, a feat that left him feeling awesome and incredibly accomplished. Bro really grinded 19 playthroughs? That's some next-level gamer energy. He reveled in the thought of being the strongest person in the world, at least in the game. He knew that the 20th playthrough was said to be absolutely hellish. Looking at his character screen, we see his player, Kimchi for Life, at level 9,990, just 9 levels shy of the max of 9,999. Hilariously, the character is decked out in a pink magical girl outfit, complete with a heart-themed chest plate, a skirt, and a bow. Mumbling to himself in a sleep-deprived daze, he decides he's leveled up enough. It took him years, but he was finally ready for round 20, a prompt appeared on screen. Begin your 20th playthrough. He pressed yes. The moment he pressed the button, a blinding flash of light erupted from his monitor, engulfing him. He cried out in confusion and pain as the light pulled him in. He found himself as a blue ethereal form falling through the sky. Trying to stay calm, he reasoned that since he was blue, this must be his soul, so he probably wouldn't die from the fall. Looking down, he recognized a landmark from the game, the Tomb of the Paladins. He was now in the world of Paladins of Blood. He was ecstatic, believing he was about to possess his nearly maxed out character, Kimchi for life. He laughed maniacally, thinking his new life as a strong, invincible warrior was about to begin. His soul zoomed down towards the slumbering hero, but as he got a closer look at the character in the ridiculous pink outfit, he had a sudden change of heart, thinking he really didn't want to be that guy. Instantly, his soul was yanked away, changing course. He panicked, screaming as he realized he was now heading towards the demon lord Kratos instead. And that brings us back to the present. Kratos sits on his throne, sighing over his current predicament. He laments his foolishness, believing that if he hadn't had that one stupid, fleeting thought after seeing Kimchi for Life's outfit, he wouldn't have ended up in the body of this weakling demon lord. As he wallows in regret, Zephyros is seen approaching again. The scene briefly shows what Zephyros had witnessed just moments before, the four generals conspiring. They saw Kratos' command to stop the invasion as a clear sign of weakness. They plotted to join forces, cut off his head, and share his power and authority. There was some hesitation, as one general pointed out that Kratos himself became king by killing the previous one, so he might not be as weak as he appeared. They agreed that if they could find definitive proof of his weakness, then they would have no choice but to kill him. Zephyros now stands before Kratos and delivers a grim report. He states that troop morale is at rock bottom, with widespread reports of fratricide, illegal cannibalism, and desertion. He then confirms Kratos' fears. The four great generals are enraged, convinced he has grown weak, and are now planning to cut off his head. Kratos trembles internally, knowing that if the four of them came after him, he'd be dead in a heartbeat. The situation was clear. If he appeared weak, he was dead. Yeah, this guy is literally trapped between a rock and a hard place.
He briefly wonders about Kimchi for life, concluding that since his soul didn't possess him, the hero's body must be an empty corpse. For a second, he thinks charging into the human world might be a viable option. But then Zephyros mentions a video sent by another general, Ogma, from the Tomb of the Paladins. Kratos flashes back to the gruesome footage. It showed his demons being brutally beaten by Kimchi for life. The climax of the video was the hero gouging out a demon's eyes as it screamed in agony. The memory makes Kratos sweat, thinking the person playing that character must be a lunatic and he wants nothing to do with him. Bro, that's next level psycho villain energy. He feels completely trapped. His options are to be killed by his own generals for showing weakness, or to get his eyes gouged out by Kimchi for life if he invades the human world. He despairs over why he's even in this game world and can't find any happiness. He concludes that his only option for survival is to solve the food shortage problem and placate the demons. Resolved, Kratos stands up from his throne. Zephyros asks where he is going. Kratos, forgetting his role, politely responds that he was just going to look at some land for tilling. Zephyros looks at him, confused by the polite word pardon. He then launches into a lecture, stating that the demon lord is supposed to be narcissistic, arrogant, and completely lacking in manners, calling his politeness horrendous and appalling. Kratos is baffled, wondering if Zephyros is setting him up. Bro, imagine the demon lord saying pardon me while his generals are plotting his death. A brief game mechanic flashback shows why Zephyros was a popular character. He would appear right before the final battle, trying to tell the hero that the demon lord no longer wished to fight, only to be killed for his efforts. His dying words were an apology to his lord for not being strong enough to protect him, leading players to believe he was incredibly loyal. Back in the present, Zephyros continues to nag Kratos, calling his situation an unprecedented mistake. Kratos just finds him intensely annoying. Zephyros scoffs at the idea of farming in the demon lands, calling Kratos a goldfish for forgetting that it's been tried before. He explains that all previous demon lords have failed because the soil is barren and the weather is too irregular for anything to grow. Yeah, farming in hell? This guy is insane. But Kratos confidently replies. He knows this place is called the Land of Death, but he declares that he can save it. He thinks to himself that even though he's sick of farming, he has to do it to survive. To prove his point, Kratos shocks Zephyros by bending down, grabbing a handful of dirt, and eating it. Zephyros immediately starts taking notes, documenting that the demon lord is acting strangely and has started eating dirt. Kratos yells at him to stop writing that down, but Zephyros calmly states he is performing his duty to record the annals of the demon lord. Kratos spits the dirt out, announcing his diagnosis. The dirt lacks nutrients, specifically nitrogen. Here, Kratos Kratos' agricultural knowledge kicks in. He internally explains that nitrogen is essential for plant growth, but plants can't use the nitrogen in the air because of its strong triple bond. Humans created nitrogen fixation through chemical engineering, but without any tools here, he needs a natural mechanism. That mechanism, he realizes, is lightning, which can turn atmospheric nitrogen into nitrous acid that gets absorbed into the soil with rain. A brilliant idea strikes him. He remembers from the game that Demon Lord Kratos, his main attack move is called Bloody Strike. It's a technique where lightning and moisture explode together, perfect for creating fertile soil. He tells a confused Zephyrus to stand back. To activate the skill, he has to cut his own hand with his claws. As he does, he shouts in pain, shocked at how much it actually hurts, a detail he never had to consider as a player. Ouch! Self-harm for soil fertility? This guy is suffering for science. At that very moment, the four generals, who were hiding behind a dead tree, see his pained reaction. They whisper among themselves that he has definitely grown weak. Even Zephyrus looks over and bluntly states that Kratos is 100% weaker. Cornered, Kratos thinks that his aide must be an assassin trying to get him killed, but deciding this is still better than dying, he grits his teeth and resolves to go through with it. He powers through the pain and unleashes the full force of the bloody strike. After the attack, Kratos stands there, his hand dripping blood onto the barren ground. He's panting from the exertion and pain. His moment of recovery is cut short as he sees the four generals stepping out from their hiding spot. One of them asks if he is unwell. They advance on him, their faces grim and menacing. Kratos realizes he's in deep trouble. Yep, definitely still in deep trouble. The scene then shifts entirely, showing a vibrant green landscape. Here stands the hero, Kimchi for life, no longer a player character, but an NPC. He thinks to himself that he has faint memories of a previous life and was heading somewhere guided by the Hand of Fate. But now that feeling is gone. The Hand of Fate no longer speaks to him, and he questions what his purpose is now. The level 999 ex-hero looks out at the world, raises his head, and begins to walk forward, stepping into an unknown future. So Kimchi for life is now an NPC? Wonder what he's going to do next.
The four great generals were menacingly approaching Demon Lord Kratos. Asarath, the blood drinker, took the lead, stating that demons follow a simple rule: the Demon Lord must be the strongest of them all. Kratos internally panicked. He realized he currently had no skills he could use. His body began to shake uncontrollably from fear. Asarath mistook Kratos' trembling for him gathering a massive amount of power before the fight had even begun. Smirking, he questioned if the Demon Lord truly thought he could defeat all four of them in his current weakened state. However, as Asarath stood ready, he noticed the other three generals were just hiding behind a nearby dead tree. Nah, you're wrong if you think they're helping, Kratos thought. He angrily asked what they were doing. One of them sheepishly replied that they were just watching the fight to decide if they should join or not. Asarath called them jerks for their cowardice. One of the generals calmly explained that they are demons, and this is what should be expected. Suddenly, Zephyrus appeared, announcing that according to demon tradition, all fights are broadcast live, and no one can back out. He raised his hand, and a magical projection appeared, showing the fight to a roaring crowd of demons. Zephyrus even acted as a hype man, telling Asarath not to be scared because Kratos is weak. Bro, hype me and Zephyrus is next level trolling. With everyone watching, Asarath leaped forward to attack. Kratos was in full-blown panic, wondering what to do. He recalled trying to test his own strength earlier and finding that while he was strong, it wasn't by an overwhelming amount. As the attack came, he recognized the move from the game, either a thrust or a slash. No way I can dodge this, he thought, but then his body moved on its own, twisting and narrowly avoiding the massive blade. Bro, that was too close. Kratos was stunned, wondering how he managed to dodge that. Then, a memory from his life as a gamer surfaced. He recalled analyzing this exact attack pattern in the game. Because Asarath's left foot turned outward on his second step, the next move was definitely a thrust. Realization dawned on him: the enemy's moves were exactly the same as in the game. Wait, it's like playing on
on autopilot. The other generals, watching from their hiding spot, misinterpreted the dodge. They believed Kratos was about to counter and tear off Aseroth's arm, but held back for some reason, deciding to keep watching. As Aseroth continued his relentless assault, Kratos kept dodging perfectly. His mind was flooded with memories of his time playing Paladins of Blood. He remembered how he was completely stumped by Aseroth at first, finding the boss incredibly difficult due to his speed and varied attacks. "Bro, I almost rage quit 128 times," he thought. By his 19th playthrough, he had mastered the fight to a no-hit run. With this knowledge, he confidently concluded that none of Aseroth's attacks would ever land on him. A grin spread across Kratos' face as he effortlessly dodged every swing. The onlooking generals were shocked, believing that the Demon Lord was having fun, and laughing at how weak Aseroth was. Aseroth, enraged, continued his futile attacks. At that moment, a blue system window, just like one from a webcomic, appeared before him. The message congratulated him for realizing the basic rules of the world and for avoiding attacks with a high level of focus. Yes! Game mechanics actually working in real life. As a reward, it announced that some of the game system had been unlocked for him. The targeting function was now available. A green targeting reticle immediately locked on to Aseroth. Kratos recognized this as the function needed to use special skills. With this new power, he cut his hand and unleashed his ultimate move, Bloody Strike. The attack hit Aseroth dead on, causing a massive explosion of red and yellow energy. The other generals and Zephyros cheered, convinced of their lord's overwhelming power. Bro, this is insane. However, as the smoke cleared, Aseroth was still kneeling, bruised but alive. Kratos was shocked, remembering that Aseroth had incredible recovery skills and would be back to normal in no time. To prevent this, he repeatedly hit the down general with more bloody strikes. He noted that these weaker strikes would only hurt, not kill him. After a barrage of attacks, Aseroth was left twitching on the ground, his clothes completely ripped off. The message continued, announcing that a new system had been unlocked, the armor inventory and removal function. He checked his inventory, but found only the basic armor he was already wearing, deeming the function useless for now. Standing over the defeated Aseroth, he realized he was too weak to finish him off, and the general's recovery meant he'd be back up soon. But then, an idea struck him. Bro, I can actually use him to farm. Genius! While he couldn't kill him, he could keep targeting him with Bloody Strike. This meant he could use Aseroth as a living lightning rod to flood the soil with tons of nitrogen for farming. Convinced of his own genius, he turned to the other generals who were now trembling in fear and called out to Circe, the Ice Queen. He commanded her to tie up the naked Aseroth. Circe blushed, thinking this was a plan to embarrass both her and Aseroth. The plan was set in motion. Aseroth was tied to a large wooden cross, becoming a lightning rod. He quickly recovered and started shouting that Kratos really had grown weaker since he couldn't even kill him. Kratos promptly shut him up by blasting him with another Bloody Strike. He internally narrated that this oxidizes the nitrogen, turning it into nitrous acid. Next, he commanded Hartok, the Mistborn Duke, to cover the area in a fog that was so thick that it was dripping wet. The generals were horrified, believing this was a creative method of torture designed to make the lightning hurt more. Hartok complied, creating a dense, moist fog. With all the components in place, Kratos repeatedly bombarded the fog-drenched Aseroth with Bloody Strikes. While he felt the pain of activating the skill, he laughed maniacally, excited about how fertile the ground was becoming and the good harvest they'll get. After the relentless assault, he examined the now muddy, nitrogen-rich soil, declaring it perfect. His next step was to improve the soil's grain structure, as it was currently single-grain soil that lacked oxygen and had poor drainage. To turn it into loamy, fluffy soil perfect for farming, he needed manure. He turned to the 3 terrified, blood and sweat-soaked generals and commanded them to fetch him poop. They could only stare in horror, thinking how unbelievably cruel their lord was to fry a man and then plan to cover him in poop.
Kimchi for life walked through a peaceful green forest. The air was calm, birds chirped, and sunlight filtered through the leaves. Bro, feels almost too normal after all that chaos. Suddenly, he heard a voice pleading for help. He immediately turned, noticing 2 men, one injured, struggling to stand. They explained that they were attacked by goblins and begged for his help, promising a reward. Kimchi for life observed them quietly, his expression unreadable. The men were initially terrified of Kimchi for life's strange magical girl appearance, thinking he looked suspicious and like something from a horror story. Bro, you really look like a cursed fairy princess right now. Just saying. But he ignored their fear, his calm aura giving them some relief, and simply told them he was not a suspicious man. Noticing one man's injured leg, Kimchi for life effortlessly lifted him into a princess carry. The man gasped, shocked at his strength. Bro, this guy is seriously OP. He told the other man to lead the way. As they walked, the injured man, still amazed by Kimchi for life's strength, introduced himself as Ryjav Azrahan, an envoy, and his companion as Dial Frontera. Ryjav asked politely, "Who is our savior?" Nah, even he doesn't know his own name, bro. That's awkward. Kimchi for life looked ahead silently, contemplating. He thought to himself that his own identity was still a mystery. He realized that, unlike before, he could no longer rely on memories of past lives to guide him. In the Demon Lord's castle, where the 3 generals, Hartok, Cersei, and Bahal, were gathered, looking utterly dejected, Hartok wondered aloud how they were supposed to bring the Demon Lord feces. He questioned if they were expected to produce it themselves. Bro, this is peak absurdity already. Cersei, blushing furiously, exclaimed that the Demon King must have lost his mind, calling the order filthy and disgusting. The simple-minded Bahal added that since he hadn't eaten in a while, he had no poop to give. Cersei quickly agreed, saying she was in the same situation. Hartok, ever the schemer, suggested they just kidnap some low-level demons and force them to do the dirty work. Nah, that's cruel even by demon standards. The scene then shifted to a desolate demon village where the generals were putting Hartok's plan into action. A terrified, emaciated demon begged them to stop, explaining that he couldn't possibly poop while so many people were watching. Bro, they're literally asking a starving demon to poop on command? He also pointed out the obvious. With nothing to eat, there's nothing to excremate. Hearing this, Hartok got a sudden idea. He grabbed the demon by the neck, dark energy flowing from the victim into Hartok's hand. Nah, this is getting dark, even for me. Just as Hartok was about to drain the demon's life, Bahal intervened, stopping his arm. He reasoned that if the demon died, there would be no more poop, and the task would fail. Hartok paused, momentarily surprised by the logic. Cersei then chimed in with her own cruel idea, suggesting they feed one of their captives to the others to make them defecate. This led to a tense standoff between the generals, as each prepared to fight. Bro, this is turning into poop warfare. Suddenly, a blast of red lightning struck between them, forcing them apart. Demon Lord Kratos had arrived. He furiously scolded them, asking if they were dimwits who thought only demon feces would work. Nah, he's losing it. But wait, there's method to this madness. He clarified that he needed feces with nutritional value to make compost. The generals and Zephyros were confused, having never heard the word compost before. Kratos gave them a quick lesson in agriculture, explaining that compost provides nutrients to the soil. He listed the ingredients: tree ash, weeds, soil, eggshells, and chicken dung. Thoughtful. Bro, he's turning poop into a superpower. He told them they could get ash and weeds from the abandoned houses they had seen, but the real problem was finding eggshells and chicken dung. Just then, he had a brilliant idea. Summoning Zephyros, he asked for a map of the land. When it was spread out, he confirmed it matched exactly the map from the game. Excited. Yes, game knowledge actually working. He pointed to a remote coastal area, declaring that it would definitely have what they needed, a demon seagull habitat. He explained that in the game, this area was filled with seagulls that flew to the human territories to eat, then returned to these cliffs to lay eggs and defecate. The location was a goldmine of ingredients. However, Zephyros warned him that the place was called the Cliffs of No Return. The cliffs crumbled easily, and anyone who fell into the rough waves below was never seen again. Many demons had died there. Nah, bro, this is a literal suicide mission. Kratos calmly replied that he was aware of the danger. In the game, the area was inaccessible to any player, but he
knew a secret. He could climb it. The group arrived at the massive, treacherous cliffs by the churning sea. The generals and Zephyros looked on in disbelief. Kratos laid out the plan. He would climb the cliff, gather the eggs and feces, and toss them down for the others to catch. Motivated. Bro, farming with eggs and poop just went extreme. He motivated them with the promise that if this succeeded, they could finally fill everyone's bellies. Bahal, thinking of the starving demon children, looked at his lord with newfound resolve. Kratos then flashed back to his gaming days. He recalled that during his 13th playthrough, he had tried to climb this very cliff hundreds of times, dying over and over. But in the end, he succeeded by abusing a glitch in the game. With that memory in mind, he leapt toward the cliff face, mashing his hands into the rock just as he did to exploit the glitch. To make it work better, he unequipped his equipment inventory and unequipped all of his armor, much to the shock of his followers below. Now completely naked, he continued his bizarre, glitchy climb. At one point, he got stuck in a strange pose and realized everyone was watching. He panicked, trying to stop his body from performing an embarrassing rollover animation. He quickly re-equipped his armor, but the glitch caused it to appear in pieces on the cliff before reassembling. Despite the absurdity, he finally made it to the top, proving that the game's mechanics, including its glitches, worked in this world.
As Kratos reached the top of the cliff, Bahal, moved by the Demon King's promise to feed his people, decided he must help. He declared he would follow Kratos and started climbing the cliff. Zephyros tried to stop him, but it was too late. Kratos, having just re-equipped his armor, looked down in shock and yelled at Bahal, asking what he was doing. "This is insane!" The unstable cliff crumbled under Bahal's weight, and he began to fall. Without hesitation, Kratos dove off the cliff after him. He caught Bahal mid-air, but the general's immense weight almost broke his arm. As he dangled, pain shot through his limbs. Okay, maybe this was a bad idea. He thought about how Bahal was one of the generals who wanted him dead and briefly considered letting go. But then a powerful memory from his past life hit him. He remembered a younger student who had begged for help with a professor who wouldn't approve his thesis. Scared of repercussions, Jangchul had coldly walked away, leaving the student to cry alone. The weight of that regret pressed down on him now. I can't repeat that mistake. Not again. Fueled by that regret, Kratos let out a roar of exertion. With a surge of strength, he pulled and threw Bahal to the top of the cliff. The effort dislocated his arm, and he allowed himself to fall, using Bahal's landing to cushion his own crash onto the cliff top. That was close. Too close. Kratos lay on the ground, panting in pain. Bahal, completely stunned, realized the Demon Lord had saved him at great personal cost for no logical reason. Tears streamed down the burly general's face. When Bahal asked why, Kratos explained that the physical pain he felt hurt less than the regret of leaving behind those who followed him. Sometimes, doing the right thing is heavier than any sword. With this act, he was apologizing to the student he failed so long ago. As Bahal sobbed, a system window appeared before Kratos. It announced he had earned the sincere gratitude of Bahal. For this achievement, a new reward system was activated, the happiness points, HP, reward system, granting him points for providing his army with belly-filling happiness.
Demon Lord Kratos stared at the newly activated happiness points system. He couldn't help but compare it to those supermarket reward cards. He even tilted his head and asked the glowing system window, "So, is there a supermarket in this world?" The system instantly replied that there wasn't. It then explained that for every demon in his army who became happy after eating a full meal, he'd earn 1 happiness point. These points could later be used to level up his stats or improve his skills. Curious, Kratos checked his status window and frowned. He only had 20% of the original Demon King Kratos' power left. He tried increasing his stamina by 10%, but the system calmly responded that it required 50 HP and he had none. Upgrading Bloody Strike would need a staggering 250 HP. Even though he had nothing, the potential made his eyes shine. If this farming plan worked, he'd gain plenty of HP, become much stronger, and maybe finally have a real chance to survive. He also realized being thanked actually felt kinda nice. That thought twisted into a wide, almost maniacal grin. Down below, Bahal saw that grin and froze. He trembled, completely misreading it, believing Kratos was a cruel ruler who had saved his life only to demand repayment later. Oh Bahal, wrong conclusion, buddy. From atop the cliff, Kratos raised his voice, announcing a new plan. They would fill large eggshells with collected seagull droppings and toss them down. The generals and Zephyros looked up in horror as he shouted for them to catch the incoming projectile.
projectiles. Seconds later, a disgusting rainbow-colored rain of poop-filled eggshells splattered across them. Chaos, confusion, and a very smelly battlefield. After the mess, Kratos clapped his hands. Now, he said, it's time to get serious about farming. He began explaining the compost-making process. Step 1. Mix all the ingredients: seagull poop, eggshells, tree ash, and soil. He assigned Circe to handle the grinding and mixing. The Ice Queen, her multiple blade-like arms twitching, shouted furiously that she was not created to dice feces. Kratos just looked toward the still crucified Osirath and quietly suggested that Circe could always switch jobs with him. The silence was immediate. Circe gulped and began frantically chopping and mixing like her life depended on it, because, well, it probably did. He watched her work, thinking he couldn't relax around these short-tempered generals. But he had no choice. He'd have to push through with pure guts and determination. Step 2. Spray the mixture with water. Kratos ordered Hartok to fly up and make fog. Hartok complained the moisture would make everything smell worse, but one look from Kratos toward the still crucified Osirath was enough. Hartok immediately obeyed, summoning a thick, stinky mist. Step 3. Gather the compost and cover it with seagull feathers. Bahal demonstrated, but as Kratos surveyed the enormous field, he realized something troubling. They didn't have enough feathers, and making enough compost this way would take ages. He concluded he'd need many more demons to help, and decided to fully exercise his authority as Demon King to make it happen.
The scene shifted to a small, dark hut at night. A skinny demon named Dayrok sat beside the bed of his sick daughter, Flute. The frail girl looked up and weakly whispered, "Dad, you should eat me." Dayrok's eyes widened. He scolded her, voice shaking with anger and fear. His mind replayed the nightmare of his wife, who had gone mad from hunger. He remembered how he, driven by starvation, had turned into a beast, and how his wife had stood between him and their daughter, protecting Flute, until he had devoured her himself. He had collapsed afterward, hollow, wondering what reason he had left to live. That memory shattered as the hut door suddenly burst open. Kratos, Bahal, and Zephyrus stood there. Kratos coldly observed that Dayrok had enough energy to shout, then ordered him taken away. Dayrok begged for his daughter's safety, crying that she'd be eaten without him, but his pleas went unanswered as he was dragged away. Zephyrus reported that they'd taken 20 demons already. They needed 30 more. Kratos recalled a moment from the game where a hero had killed a demon girl like Flute. He steeled his heart. He ordered the royal guards to patrol for cannibalism and commanded Zephyrus to conscript more demons for compost work. This was the Demon King's dictatorship. Harsh, but necessary. Days passed. The captured demons toiled endlessly under the scorching sun. Dayrok muttered to another worker that farming was useless. They didn't even have seeds. Kratos overheard and replied calmly, "I know what we'll plant." He led them to the area where the generals had once hidden and pointed to a small purple flower. Dayrok turned pale. The roots, he said, were poisonous. Kratos ignored him, plucked it from the ground, and revealed the tubers beneath. He announced that they were already testing it on Dayrok's own daughter. Dayrok's heart dropped. He sprinted home, screaming for Flute not to eat it. Bursting into the hut, he found her sitting up, happily munching on pieces of the cooked root. She smiled. "It's so good! I'm full!" And she revealed that Zephyrus and Bahal had fed her the same thing yesterday. Kratos then explained the plant's history, how humans had once removed its poison and used it to end famine. They called it a potato. Dayrok fell to his knees, tears streaming, thanking the demon lord for saving his child. A glowing system window appeared before Kratos. "A portion of your army has achieved happiness," it read. "You have earned 1 happiness point." Kratos stared at the single HP and then at Flute's smiling face. He thought about all the starving demons and for the first time admitted that maybe, even for a demon king, there was no rule saying he couldn't care. "A child should eat well to grow strong," he whispered. A genuine smile spread across his face, but the generals saw that smile and shuddered. They whispered to each other, convinced that their lord was simply fattening up the girl to eat her later.
In Chavan-they-Wantar, the innermost province of the Demon King's territory, the place is harsh, blazing hot days and freezing nights. Kratos reflects, seriously, this is brutal, that it's similar to the Andean highlands. He recalls how humans long ago struggled with food, sometimes resorting to poisonous wild potatoes. But humans are clever. They always find a way to make deadly foods edible. On the fields, a demon from the farming corps reports that all the potatoes have been laid out to dry. Kratos loudly commands Bahal, "Stomp them flat!" Bahal leaps high, slamming down with his powerful meteor stomp, smashing the potatoes. Kratos calmly explains the process to the followers.
hours. 5 days of freezing nights and thawing days, followed by stomping to squeeze out the poison-filled water. Then the water evaporates. Repeat until the poison is gone, then dry and lightly roast them. The result? Chunyo, edible, nutritious food. Bro, this guy really thought of everything. Once the batch is ready, Kratos calls the demons for a snack. He warns them to take only 2 each. There isn't much. One demon, seeing a large pile of raw potatoes, hesitates and asks why they don't just make more. Kratos explains they need to plant the rest, predicting the crop will return 100-fold, maybe 1,000-fold. The demons murmur nervously. Memories of poisonous roots that killed relatives haunt them. Derek tries to reassure them, saying his daughter Flute ate the potatoes and is fine. Another demon glares at Kratos' menacing grin, whispering, "Nah, this is suspicious," that he might be testing them, or worse, enjoying their suffering. Kratos impatiently shouts for them to eat, and Derek, fed up with fear, shoves 2 chunyos into the naysayer's mouth. The demon chews nervously, then swallows. Suddenly, his eyes go wide, and he shouts tearfully, "Long live the Demon King!" The rest of the starving demons immediately follow, devouring their portions with joy. They begin to understand. Kratos really gave them food. Kratos observes their cheer and thinks, sounds like a jingle from an ad. Needs a rewrite later. Zephyrus watches quietly, thinking, Kratos carries himself like someone who always knew he could make food grow on barren land. Maybe he really can end this famine. Just then, a system window appears. Soldiers are happy from eating, and Kratos is awarded 50 happiness points. His total jumps to 51. He's thrilled. Finally, some progress. Realizing he now has enough points to make himself a bit stronger. Looking at his stats, he hesitates, deciding not to spend yet, thinking carefully which stat would help most.
With the Chunyo's success, Kratos organizes the farming corps. He instructs them to spread the word in villages, boasting that food is growing. He introduces vouchers. Demons can exchange them for Chunyos if they help dig wild potatoes. The plan works. Soon, villagers eagerly join the harvest. Chaos turns productive. Some produce Chunyos for eating, while the generals continue compost creation. Kratos personally oversees fertilizing, placing Aseroth's crucifix strategically and blasting him with bloody strike to generate more nitrogen. Bro, still using that poor guy for farming? Savage! Yet, a problem emerges. The field is too big. Mixing compost evenly is too much work for the small crew. Kratos sits with Zephyros, frustrated. He asks if messengers were sent to other provinces for support. Zephyros confirms, but no reply has come yet. Kratos groans internally, realizing farming a whole army alone will be exhausting. Meanwhile, in the first province, the Ravines of the Damned, Sartul, the father of the damned, receives a scout report. Kratos is farming and producing edible food. Sartul thinks, this is an attack on me. Kratos is trying to control my power by stopping the war and preventing starvation. Sartul, who grows stronger by consuming demon souls, decides that all demons must starve, so he can consume them and become the new Demon King. He orders Phycomir destroy everything related to Kratos' farming experiment. Back at the farming fields, under the moonlight, a spectral cloaked figure approaches crucified Aseroth. It's Phycomir. He scolds the general, calling Kratos wicked for leaving him half dead as an example. Then he makes an offer. Once Kratos is gone, Sartul will take him in. Phycomir summons wraiths and orders them to ruin the soil and turn the field into a wasteland.
Phycomir sees the large piles of compost. He thinks this is the most important part of the farm. He laughs and tells his ghost to spread the compost all over the field. He wants them to mix it deep into the dirt so that Kratos and his team can never gather it again. The ghosts happily start working, thinking they are ruining the farm. However, Asurath is still tied to the cross and watches everything. He is very confused. He remembers hearing Kratos say earlier that the next step was to mix the compost into the dirt, and that this would be very hard work. So, the funny part is that the enemies are not destroying the farm at all. They are actually helping Kratos by doing the hardest job for him. While Phycomir is laughing and thinking he is winning, he is actually preparing the field perfectly for planting. Asurath watches them do Kratos' work and thinks to himself, what are those guys even doing?
As all the fruits of Kratos' labor are undone.
Sartul's wraiths worked tirelessly to ruin Kratos' fields. One wraith, number 2718, seemed unusually diligent. Another wraith, noticing this, asked why he was working so hard. 2718 shrugged, admitting he didn't know, but when he looked at the ruined fields, a strange sense of pride swelled inside him. Bro, really? Inspired by this foolish pride, the other wraith decided to be a
fool too, and threw himself into the destruction with renewed energy. The wraiths became so absorbed in their work that they lost all sense of time. As dawn approached, they realized sunlight would kill them. One of them remarked, "Well, it was worth it." As the sun rose higher, they began to dissipate, vanishing into nothingness. Fikemir, holding an umbrella against the sun, watched their demise and whispered, satisfied, "Rest in peace, my minions." Now he waited, curious how Kratos would react. Meanwhile, Kratos and Zephyros stood in a storehouse stacked with harvested potatoes. Kratos explained that digging up the field had taken time, and the next task would be just as long. He described the potatoes as dormant, saying they were sleeping peacefully before being violently yanked out of the ground by their hair, fainting from shock. Kratos knew how to break the dormancy, store them cold for weeks, then move them to a dark, warm spot. He considered asking Circe for help with her ice powers, but she was still angry. Hartok, he suspected, might be plotting something, so he avoided involving them. Even his attempt to warm the storehouse by making the farming corps do squats failed. They tired too quickly. Bro, really thinking that'd work? Not defeated, Kratos headed to the fields with Zephyros to infuse the soil with nitrogen. They arrived and were stunned. The ground was perfectly tilled, the compost stench strong. His field was ready for planting. Kratos laughed in disbelief. Seriously, how? Just then, Bahal appeared, holding a struggling Fikemir. Kratos recognized him as a boss from the game's Ravines of the Damned. Zephyros asked what Fikemir was doing here, but Kratos punched him first. Zephyros blinked in surprise. Kratos calmly explained that hitting a suspicious character first was more effective. Bahal nodded, impressed. Together, they relentlessly beat Fikemir for answers.
The interrogation was exhausting. Kratos panted heavily. A system window popped up, reminding him he could spend HP to boost stats. With 51 HP, he spent 50 to increase his stamina from 20% to 30%. Re-energized, he resumed the beating. Fikemir finally broke, confessing that Sartul had ordered him to ruin the fields to starve Kratos' army. Back in the throne room, Kratos confirmed that Sartul, from the first province, had blocked his requests for support troops. He recalled that Sartul grew stronger by absorbing the souls of starving demons. Zephyros noted this as an opportunity. Taking down Sartul could send a warning to others unhappy with the ceasefire. Kratos agreed, thinking strategically. The problem: Sartul was ghost-like, hard to pin down, and his territory was treacherous. Bro, this is gonna be tricky. Kratos decided if the pest is hard to catch in its nest, they must lure it out. Later, in the fields, Little Flute timidly approached crucified Asurath. The general growled, asking what she wanted. She fidgeted nervously and explained she had heard it was because of his sacrifice that they now had food. She bowed deeply and thanked him. Asurath, proud and humiliated, roared, threatening to eat her and promising to kill Kratos once freed. His yelling made Flute cry. Suddenly, a crowd of demons arrived, carrying a new cross with a banner, inauguration of Lightning Rod number 2. They celebrated with Kratos, bringing a captured Fikemir tied to the second cross. Asura's eyes widened, thinking he might finally be free. Kratos crushed that hope with a grin, explaining there were now 2 lightning rods. He unleashed a double bloody strike, electrocuting both Asurath and Fikemir at the same time. Far away in his province, Lord Sartul roared in agony, feeling his servant being tortured. Bro, oh no, Sartul's feeling this! Kratos repeatedly blasting his 2 living lightning rods, Azarath and Fikemir, with his bloody strike attack. Far away, Lord Sartul watches through his magic and cries out in agony as he feels Fikemir's suffering. Kratos notices one of Sartul's skeletal lookout birds, observing him, and immediately grits his teeth, determination burning in his eyes. Bro, Sartul's watching? Not on my farm. He's resolved to make Sartul regret ever interfering with his crops. Later in the fields, Little Flute pokes at the soil with a small
shovel. Azarath, still tied to his cross, notices her and asks what she's doing. She explains that she sees the Demon King, the 4 generals, and everyone else working so hard, and she wants to help too. Azarath scoffs, saying she's just a low-ranking demon and that he's the one who plowed all the fields. He tells her to make herself useful if she's gonna do anything. Flute thanks him sincerely for his hard work and for being their lightning rod. Seriously, he's feeling touched? Huh. Fikamir is momentarily moved, realizing his suffering might have a purpose. Azarath, however, shakes his head, muttering that Azarath's lost it, tilling soil won't matter, and the potatoes won't even sprout. We're all gonna starve anyway, he adds, trying to sound smug. Unintentionally, Fikamir reveals a key detail. The potatoes will sprout if the storehouse is made warm. Flute overhears him, thanks him, ironically, and dashes toward the storehouse, leaving Azarath yelling after her. Azarath sighs, clearly exasperated by the lowlife underling. Nah, this guy. Meanwhile, in the throne room, Zephyros questions Kratos' plan, doubting that Sartul will fall for a trap and attempt a rescue personally. Kratos calmly confirms he knows Sartul won't come himself. He'll send underlings first. To lure Sartul from the ravines, every last one of his minions must be eliminated. At his command, Bahal stands ready with the farming corps, prepared for battle. Back in the ravines of the damned, Sartul scoffs at the scouts' report, thinking Kratos foolish for sending his children into an obvious ambush. He dismisses Fikamir's loss, focusing solely on making Kratos' farm fail. He summons the Soul Eaters, ghostly, fish-like minions, and commands them to destroy every potato.
The Soul Eaters invade the storehouse, only to find it empty. Kratos is waiting. Bro, this is his domain now. Kratos recalls from the game how dangerous these creatures are. They latch onto a player to rapidly age them and copy their skills. Even worse, they move in groups. But he also remembers their critical weakness, electric attacks. He taunts them, asking who wants to be fried first. The Soul Eaters hesitate, realizing it's a trap. Kratos then reveals his secret. Last night, he spread his own blood across the storehouse floor. Using this as a medium, he unleashes a wide-range bloody strike. The massive electrical surge zaps every Soul Eater. Kratos roars for the farming corps to attack. Scrawny-looking demons charge in with farming tools, smashing the stunned Soul Eaters. Kratos notes that while they appear weak, these demons are actually high-level mobs from the last map of the game, more than capable of taking down ghosts. Bro, my team's OP. Watching the slaughter, Kratos feels a cold satisfaction. He might really belong in this world as a brilliant, ruthless demon king. Some Soul Eaters escape. Kratos prepares to handle them himself, but notices little Flute standing atop the massive pile of potatoes. A Soul Eater lunges at her, but Darok intercepts it, protecting his daughter. Kratos is annoyed. The last Soul Eater is out of bloody strike range. Just then, a potato flies through the air and smacks the creature in the head, dissolving it into water. Another potato, glowing with a pink aura, transforms into a red, spiky fruit that bounces off the potato pile. Kratos is baffled. The remaining Soul Eaters fly into the storehouse, drawn by some unseen force. Looking closer, he notices one potato has sprouted. An epiphany hits. The Soul Eater's age-advancing ability restarted the dormant potato's biorhythm, forcing it to sprout. Overjoyed, he swoops down, scoops up a terrified Flute, and thanks her profusely. Standing atop the mountain of now sprouted potatoes, he addresses his farming corps. With a menacing grin, he declares a change of plans. They will stop trying to lure out Sartul. Instead, grabbing a sprouted potato, he announces, evil grin, right now, we're better off invading.
Asureth, still crucified, drifts into an existential crisis. He wonders who he is and what he's living for, finding a strange melancholic beauty in the rising sun. Bro, deep thoughts on a cross? His musings are abruptly interrupted by a rumbling stomach, a stark reminder that life's yearning still pulses within him. Just then, little Flute approaches excitedly, explaining that, thanks to his advice about the potato sprouts, everything turned out perfectly. She tells him that Lord Kratos took the farming corps to sprout the potatoes, and she even got a ton of chunyos as a reward. Overwhelmed by hunger, Asureth's mind snaps. Food becomes his only thought. Flute notices and tries to feed him the chunyos. Her aim, however, is terrible. She pelts him square in the face with the rock-hard snacks. Enraged, Asureth thrashes against the cross, threatening to devour her. Flute apologizes, trying again, and this time manages
manages to get a few chuños into his mouth. He is stunned. They are actually delicious. Nah, even I wouldn't expect that. Meanwhile, Kratos receives a system notification. Demons are happy from eating, granting him another happiness point. His total HP rises to 302. Kratos deduces that 300 points came from the new farming recruits and 1 from Flute. He puzzles briefly over the origin of the last point before shrugging. Whatever, points are points. He knows he must save up for the coming Sartul attack. With his forces assembled, Kratos orders the farming corps to advance, their battle cry echoing, "Here's to a full harvest." The army arrives at the entrance to the Ravines of the Damned, a perilous rope bridge stretching over a yawning chasm. Sartul's underlings, stationed on the far side, quickly cut the ropes, laughing at what they think is a foolproof ambush. Kratos, unfazed, leaps across the gap. Using his unequipped glitch, he sheds his armor mid-air, limbs and rear sticking comically to the cliff face. Sartul's ghostly minions are horrified and disgusted. Bro, disgusted by my butt? Once rearmored, Kratos points to his generals and orders them to follow the plan. Bahal and Zephyros nod in understanding.
Kratos charges headfirst into the cave, unarmed. From his gaming knowledge, he knows the Soul Eaters fear the potatoes, but if he attacks alone, they will see it as an opportunity. Sure enough, Sartul orders them to engage. The ghosts swarm him, expecting an easy victory. Kratos unleashes Quantum Rush, phasing through cave walls and enemies, disorienting them completely. The Soul Eaters are shocked. When did he gain the ability to pass through walls? Using his intimate knowledge of the map, scoured 19 times in previous playthroughs, Kratos leads the ghosts on a wild chase, gathering them in a massive cavern. Panting, the Soul Eaters think he's trapped and exhausted. Kratos smirks. At this moment, he declares, "I am not the Demon King. I am a veteran player and a farmer." On his signal, Zephyros leads the farming corps through a secret shortcut, bombarding the cavern with sprouted potatoes. The ghosts are caught in a storm of age-advancing tubers. Bro, potato power OP! Kratos had instructed Zephyros to use an old, abandoned aqueduct, discovered in his many playthroughs as a secret path to the clearing where he first fought Sartul. He also sought a rare item there, the Elixir of Metamorphosis, capable of changing one's appearance. While the farming corps celebrates their sprouting potatoes, a memory of his grandmother worrying about his survival hits Kratos, fueling his determination. Anyone who gets in the way of someone else's food, he declares, is getting messed up. Bahal pledges to help in the coming fight, but Kratos tells him his job is to transport the potatoes. That's a boss-level task, he says. Far away, Sartul performs a ritual, calling to the heart of the ice spirit for reinforcements. He's interrupted as Kratos smashes through the ceiling of his sanctum. Sartul, shocked, demands to know how Kratos found him. Kratos simply replies, "None of your business. It's extermination time." In the next scene, Kratos confronting the ghostly Lord Sartul in his inner sanctum. Sartul mocks him for coming alone, but Kratos calmly states that he has already faced Sartul's true power 19 times in the game. He recounts the entire boss battle progression from memory, explaining that after the player exterminates all of Sartul's underlings throughout the ravines, Sartul retreats to this final room, containing the heart of the ice spirit, a terrifying artifact created from an ancient dragon's life. Before Sartul can summon more minions, the final battle begins, revealing his ultimate ability, a copy skill. Sartul creates a perfect clone of Kratos, replicating his stats and skills exactly. Kratos immediately identifies Sartul's mistake. The clone mirrors the current, weakened version of Demon King Kratos. As the clone charges, Kratos uses his accumulated happiness points to instantly upgrade his agility and strength, effortlessly dodging and countering the clone's punch. He smirks, noting that fighting, like farming, requires intelligence. Upgrading his magic and intellect, he unleashes a powered-up bloody strike, melting the clone into a puddle of goo. But the puddle reforms, and Sartul reveals his true form, an ancient evil dragon. The massive ghostly dragon roars, presenting a formidable challenge just as it had in the game. Kratos, however, spots his army, led by Bahal, emerging from a secret shortcut behind the dragon. Sartul, horrified to see the farming corps, equivalent to final stage mobs ready for battle, loses his confidence and weakly suggests negotiation. Enraged by Sartul interfering with their farming, the corps swarms the dragon, beating him with farming tools while chanting their battle cry, "A full harvest!" Sartul desperately begs for mercy. Kratos watches, realizing that while he could have defeated the dragon alone, he might not have had the heart to truly kill it. Seeing his army struggling, he activates a new skill, Summoning of the Farmer King's Throne, costing 100 HP. A massive throne made of sturdy farming tools descends and crushes
Sartul, ending the fight. The farming corps erupts in cheers, praising Kratos for being so brutal and villainous, and Kratos joins in the triumph. Back at the fields, Asureth holds an umbrella over Phycomir's empty cross as the servant's spirit ascends peacefully. With Sartul defeated and the pests eliminated, Kratos announces it's finally time to plant the potatoes. A system window appears, congratulating him for defeating Sartul for the 20th time and unlocking a hidden event. The heart of the ice spirit, now free of Sartul's corruption, begins to crack open like a box. Inside, a tiny, adorable baby dragon pops out, chirping happily at Kratos. The newly hatched baby dragon joyfully bounces around Kratos, calling him Daddy. Kratos is completely dumbfounded, staring at the tiny creature in disbelief. The baby dragon cheerfully explains that after hatching, it was dark and lonely until its daddy finally came for it. Kratos, trying to process what's happening, forces a reassuring smile, but it ends up looking like a terrifying demonic grin. The poor baby dragon freezes, trembling in fear as Kratos awkwardly cradles it. The little dragon quietly whispers to itself, Daddy? The scene cuts to the farming corps, who are loudly clamoring to eat the precious sprouted potatoes. Kratos' expression darkens as he furiously yells at everyone to stop, reminding them they'll have plenty to eat after the potatoes grow. His outburst scares the baby dragon so badly that it hides in his arms, whimpering and wondering if its daddy is planning to eat it instead. A moment later, the farming corps return to the village in a joyous parade. Families reunite, laughter fills the air, and Dayrock happily embraces his daughter, Flute. They celebrate the successful potato sprouts in their hard work. The baby dragon, still nestled in Kratos' arms, feels the warmth of the cheerful demons. For the first time, it thinks they're not so scary after all, until Kratos suddenly flashes another monstrous grin, causing the poor dragon to tremble again. Later, in a quiet room, the baby dragon sleeps soundly, while Kratos watches over it, visibly exhausted. He wonders what he's even supposed to feed it, remembering that baby dragons supposedly eat refined gems, something completely unavailable in the demon lands. Just then, Zephyros walks in with a report. As Kratos predicted, they're having trouble making the raised planting rows. Kratos sighs deeply. He explains that furrows are simple in theory, but impossible to make when the soil is full of rocks. Cut to the farming corps struggling outside, their pickaxes snapping against the hard ground, rocks everywhere. The baby dragon watches them and thinks they look like slaves, worrying it might be forced to work too. Kratos mutters that the field looks more like a coal mine than farmland. He calculates the cost. At this pace, they'll run out of chunos before they clear the rocks. Frustrated, he jokes that he wishes he could summon a wombat or something to dig for him, like a protagonist in another comic. But when he spots Flute quietly digging with her tiny shovel, his frustration fades. Seeing her determination reignites his own. Just as he steels himself, a terrifying storm brews. A massive tornado, blade wind, forms across the plains. Kratos' face drops. He curses, realizing he forgot about this random environmental hazard from the game. He yells for everyone to take cover behind the rocks. The air pressure intensifies, and the ground begins to shake. Demons scramble for safety, but then Kratos spots Flute, running straight toward the crucified Ozreth instead of away from the storm. Her father, Dayrock, screams her name in horror. Annoyed yet again, Kratos groans, shoving the baby dragon into Dayrock's arms and ordering him to protect it. He tells everyone else to stay back. Bathel protests that it's too dangerous, but Kratos cuts him off, saying he can't lose his precious lightning rod and worker. He declares that farming isn't some peaceful family pastime. It's war. He charges into the storm, the winds tearing at his body. He reaches Flute, shouting at her to run, then throws himself against the cross to shield Ozreth. The wind slices into him as he struggles to cut the ropes binding Ozreth, but they won't break. Flute freezes, unable to move, until debris hurtles toward her. At the last second, Ozreth snaps one of his restraints and blocks it, saving her. Kratos
Kratos, bleeding and barely standing, hauls both flute and the entire cross, with Ozareth still attached, out of the storm's path before collapsing. The baby dragon, watching from a distance, stares in awe. It realizes its daddy isn't very strong, yet still risks everything to protect others. Moved by this, the little dragon leaps into action. It spreads its wings, flies straight into the tornado, and declares that its daddy is a kind creature. With a fierce cry, it unleashes a massive ice blast that collides with the raging storm. The blade wind weakens as icy air spirals upward. Kratos watches in disbelief as the tiny dragon fights to calm the storm.
Kratos is lying motionless in his bed, recovering from his encounter with the blade wind. Meanwhile, the generals Hartok and Circe stealthily approach his room. Hartok proposes that while the Demon King is down, they should cut off his head. He plans to then eliminate the imbeciles Bahal and Asaroth, after which one of them will become the new Demon King. Circe agrees to the temporary alliance. As they creep into the room, preparing to strike the sleeping king, they are suddenly stopped in their tracks. Kratos is lying in bed with his eyes wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. The two assassins freeze, completely stunned. Hartok thinks Kratos knew they were coming and was waiting for them. Honestly, that's creepy. Despite this, he believes this is their only chance and prepares to attack anyway. Before they can move, they're interrupted by Bahal and Asaroth, who appear at the doorway. Bahal tells them that the Demon King is sleeping and not to wake him. Hartok and Circe are stunned, pointing out that his eyes are open, but Bahal just says, "That's his sleeping face. That's definitely demon-level sleeping." Even Hartok is impressed by how terrifying that is. Bahal warns them that if they wake the Demon King, he will get mad. Hartok turns his attention to Asaroth, questioning why he's siding with the Demon King and helping him farm. Asaroth explains that he's not really on Kratos' side, he's just repaying the debt of having his life saved. Fair enough. He assures them that next time, he'll be on their side. Circe argues that the farm is doomed to fail anyway, and they'll all starve regardless. Asaroth simply smiles and says he's aware, but to avoid starvation, one needs to risk their life. He prefers risking his life in a fight, but this will have to do for now. Those words hit deep. Even Hartok goes silent. Hartok curses them as pathetic fools, and the two conspirators retreat. Later, Kratos wakes up, aching all over. He sees Asaroth and Bahal in his room and asked what the former lightning rod is walking around for. Asaroth coolly repeats that he was just repaying his debt. Chuckles, wrong answer. Annoyed, Kratos immediately zaps him with a small bloody strike, reminding him of his place. He then declares that there's no time for delays and that they need to get all the rocks out of the fields. Bahal informs him that the rocks are almost gone. Confused tone. Wait, what? Already? When Kratos asks how, Zephyros appears and points outside. Kratos looks out to a vast field, now cleared of large rocks with neat, raised rows ready for planting. He asks Zephyros how this was accomplished, and Zephyros simply points to a small dot in the distance. It's the baby dragon Kibong. The little guy has been eating all the rocks in the field. The dragon thinks to itself, it's still too small to stop the blade winds, so it will eat everything it can to grow up big and strong. Honestly, that's adorable. Kratos is overjoyed and calls out to T-Bong, who happily flies into his arms. He realizes he now has a solution to the blade winds. T-Bong can fly up and use its cold breath to prevent the tornadoes from forming.
With the field ready, it's time to prepare the potatoes for planting. Zephyrus asks if you should make more chunyos to pay the workers, but Kratos says it's not necessary. He declares that after natural disasters, a farmer's second biggest enemy is financial pressure, and they must overcome it. Farmer wisdom from a demon king. The scene shifts to Circe's room. She is lamenting that she can't get the stench of feces out of her armor even after days of avoiding farm work. Yeah, that's what happens when you dodge chores. Kratos knocks on her door saying he needs to speak with her. She's surprised as he's never come to her room before and tells him to go away. Kratos insists he's coming in, and using his glitching ability, he phases his disembodied legs right through her door. Bro just ghosted his way in, literally. Horrified, Circe screams at him for forcing his way into a lady's room. Kratos fully enters and immediately drops to his knees, stunning her. He dramatically declares that without her, he can't do anything. Circe blushes, completely flustered by his sudden plea. Oh no, she's falling for it. He explains that he's willing to bow down to save on costs and that he needs her sharp, skilled blades. Circe, still dazed, agrees to hear him out. He leads her to the massive pile of sprouted potatoes and makes his request. He needs her to cut the potatoes in half for planting. The silence after that must have been brutal. Circe's brief romantic delusion shatters instantly, and she becomes enraged, realizing he was just playing with her
her heart to get her to do more farm work.
And that wraps up today's episode. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Your support really helps us grow. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and stay tuned.